Okay. Maybe. Okay, I will try to keep everyone awake longer than Todd does. I had to. So here's what we're looking at for our draft operating budget. We've proposed revenues at 141 million, expenses 142.7, which is working out to a difference of 1.6. The levy increase required after growth to balance that would be about 2.47%. And then for council's reference, I've included that per the Bank of Canada, the total CPI at the end of 2018 was 2%. So how does that break down? So the revenues, 141,000. This is showing you by object code. So taxation, you can see we've had very successful growth, 1.82%, that $1.2 million. The other municipalities, $2 million. This represents an increase in funding to be received from the region for the increase in intermunicipal transit service hours, which is going to be discussed later. The casino revenue, I've increased the budget to better reflect the actuals. Our year-to-date for 2018, our calendar year, not the OLG's year, came in at 24.8 million. So I've just increased the budget to 23.5 to better reflect actuals, but there's a corresponding increase of the same amount in the transfer to reserves, because as council knows, we put that away and then allocate it through the capital budget. So there's no levy impact, just making budget more closer to actuals. Grants, again, same thing. This is an increase in the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. It's gone up from, I believe it was 2.2 million last year to 3.3 million. Our operating budget actually still had the 2017 figure. I'm not sure, we must have received the notice late. So again, increase on the revenue side, but same increase on the expense side, no levy effect for the taxpayer. I think that was all I was going to highlight here. On the expenditures, so we've got our salaries going up about 4%. As you learned in camera, this represents the 11 new positions we're recommending. There is a couple slides later in the presentation that outlines what those are. Debt servicing. You can see on the debt servicing, there's this laser over here. About $50,000 is coming off the budget for debt servicing costs, so just a little bit this year. And then in the transfer columns, you can see those increases I was talking about over here. That are
transfer to capital, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Transfer. Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
Transfer to capital. We're transferring $1.3 million from more this year to capital on that transfer to capital line.
Yep.
Yes?
Yes. So it's not necessarily more this year. So because of the increase in the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, that increase has been reflected there as well. We did increase the transfer to capital from $4 million to $4.5 million. And this is to help offset, we'll get to in a later slide, we're moving this year a lot of our capital staff, project managers, salaries over to be funded from the capital budget to be allocated to the projects that they're working on.
And the transfer to reserves and reserve funds, 3.6?
Yep, so part of that, through you, Mr. Chair, to the council, part of that is the 2.5 million that I increased the casino money for. And then, just a second. And there's it's in a later slide. I've asked for an assessment appeal, special purpose reserve of 200,000, and we've increased our fleet replacement transfer. We're hoping that we can increase it from 150,000 up to 863,000.
Thank you.
Welcome. So expenses are going up 5.93%. Revenue was 4.7. The next two slides just break this out by departmental category. I'm not going to go through these in too much detail because my next slides highlight some of the highlights. So that's the revenue, and then the expenses they're on your iPads as well. So Fee-for-service groups. So we've got our fee-for-service groups listed here. The Boys and Girls Club is requesting a small increase of $5,000 or 2.5%. The last increase they had was 2.8% in 2015. So staff is comfortable recommending a small increase, but that is council's discretion. And same thing with the art gallery. They've requested a small increase of $1,000 or 3.7%, and their allotments remained at that $27,000 since 2012. So again, staff is comfortable with the small increase. For grants, as you guys are aware, we've got the municipal accommodation tax that's effective January 1st this year. And as a result, we have removed Niagara Falls Tourism and Winter Festival of Lights from our operating budget. This frees up $702,000. And those groups were encouraged to seek funding through the Niagara Falls Hotel Association, who's responsible for the municipal accommodation tax monies. The other grants, we've got Project Share, Women's Place, YWCA, and One Foundation is the hospital grant. Staff's recommending we maintain the levels, the 2018 levels, which also haven't changed for a number of years. In terms of the Lions grant, council's maintained a position of not entertaining new grants, and in the last few years they've actually removed quite a few. Council's being asked later in the agenda in the fee waiver report to continue this position of not entertaining new grants. Staff is actually recommending that we remove the Lions Club grant of $2,000 as well, and that's in line with past practice of removing grants from our budget.
On that, yep, go ahead.
The One Foundation, is that part of a commitment, a so many year commitment, or is that just being put in the budget every year now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware if that's a commitment or not.
I can't remember whether we committed them for so many years or.
I know we've paid
I
it
thought
for
when they
quite
asked for
some
the
time.
50, I thought it was, I didn't know they were going to come back.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we've included that amount every year for several years now. When One Foundation appeared here, I'm not sure how many years ago, this is a contribution towards equipment purchase for the hospital, which is part of the community contribution. This is completely separate from any new hospital lands or build, but this is simply going to GNGH, and I believe we made it specific to GNGH, that this money would be used for new equipment purchases, and we've just kept that in the budget.
No, but I think, yeah, the question was, are we on a multi-year commitment, or is this just something that we've been doing for a number
I
of
believe
years?
we've just kept it going year to year.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's grants. For our board, so this one I put a lot of text there. I know it's a bit wordy, but I wanted to explain the airport. So although it looks like the airport's asking for an increase of $131,000 to $162,000, last year their ask came in late in March after our operating budget was already approved. So council approved their operating increase through the May report with the OLG funding. So in 2018, we paid the airport $156,000 for their operating grant. However, only $131,000 was included in the operating budget. The remaining $25,000 was paid through OLG monies. This year, we've received the request in time to include the ask in the budget.
Councillor Thompson?
Could somebody bring us up to date where the region plays?
Yep, good question. I think there's
Airport.
consensus on that.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We have actually a meeting later this week with the CAOs and the acting CAO at the region. The discussions were put on hold as we went through the election period last year, and with some changes in the CAO at the region, we're getting that back on stream. We have an airport liaison committee. The airport liaison committee is made up of the 3 mayors and the 3 CAOs from the partner municipalities. We met about a month ago and came up with a strategy, and that's led to our meeting with the CAOs. It's this week. We'll be back reporting to you probably in the next month, but our goal still is to look at other partners, including the region, and looking to push this asset up to the regional level.
I thought that was discussion that has already been going on, didn't go anywhere.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it has been ongoing. There's been several pieces that we've completed. If council may recall, we had to do an environmental assessment in case we were looking at transferring the property. That was completed. We did an asset valuation of the airport itself. That was completed. And the third piece is that we went out and did a proposal call to see if there was any private sector interest that wanted to partner with us. We wanted to complete all three of those processes before we took the discussion any further to the regional level. We're at that stage now, and we're hopeful that in the next few months we'll be able to have a lot more news to report to council. We're going to be reporting back. I would hope we'd be able to be back with some information to you, hopefully within the next month or two.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the library, I had some phone calls from some of the councillors just asking for more specifics on what the library increase represented, so I thought I would just include a couple of the highlights below. So they're asking for a 5.2% increase, and this can be largely explained with labor increasing $171,000, which is cost of living increases, and a request for 3 part-time staff. The library's expanded their hours back to 7 days service, adding Sundays back to the community center and Victoria. They've also got Friday nights now at the community center and additional hours to Chippewa. And then there's an increase in digital resources of $22,000, which represents more users moving to electronic resources like ebooks. And then security, they're having some security issues at their Victoria library, and they now have full-time security, so that's gone up by $32,000, almost 33.
Councilor Carey?
Question pertaining to library.
Yep.
How in-depth do you or do some of your people get into in reviewing the request for the library? Have we gone over their budget pretty seriously, and you're comfortable with the increase? Or do we just take what they have told you?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We meet with Alicia and Caitlin, her assistant, and go through a detailed Excel spreadsheet of their budget. They explain all the increases. I worked with Alicia to come up with what was driving her increases. I believe her board dictates, they make the decisions on the budget, and that's what's presented to us. So have I gone in and analyzed it heavily? No.
Okay. Thanks.
So new positions, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We talked about this quite a bit in camera, but staff did ask for 21 new positions, and we've narrowed that down to 11 recommended, 4 of which don't have an impact on the operating budget achieved through attrition, etc. So sorry, those are just highlighted with the checkmark ones are the ones we're recommending. And then, so these are some highlights about some of the different departmental areas. So administrative services, which would be CAO, human resources, legal, finance, the internal departments. Just some highlights. The Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund amounts, they're still not released from the province. For the last 3 years, they've been reducing by 15%. So currently our budget includes an estimated reduction of $115,000 or 15%. Hopefully it's not more. Casino revenue, I talked about this one, so I've increased it by $2.5 million to better reflect the actuals, and again, corresponding transfer to special purpose reserve fund is increased by the same, so no impact on the levy. Doctor recruitment, there's a report coming up later for this, and they're recommending an increase from $80,000 to $300,000. The corresponding transfer from reserve fund is increased by the same amount, so there's no impact on the levy. Doctor recruitment's always been funded by our reserves. I wanted to highlight there is a new initiative included in administrative services, and that's $60,000 for a customer service plan. And then the senior property tax rebate, we've been experiencing increased applications, so we've increased the budget to match demand. So now we can accept 680 applications as opposed to 400 in the prior budget. Some more, we've got a transfer to special purpose reserves added for $200,000. We're requesting that this be added this year to set up a reserve for assessment appeal allowances. So we do have write-offs budgeted into our taxation budget, but the idea would be if our actual write-offs exceeded our budgeted write-offs, we would have a pot of money to pull from. Transfer to special purpose reserve has been added for $70,000 to top up the election special purpose reserve. With the recent election being funded from our special purpose reserves, our election fund is down to about $10,000, so we'll need to work through the next 3 years at topping that up. So we felt it would be prudent to spread it out over the 3 years at $70,000 a year to top that back up. The municipal accommodation tax, I talked about this. This is new. The city gets to keep 5% as an administration fee. So we've included an estimate of $200,000 in revenue, which would equate to $4 million being collected out of the municipal accommodation tax. And then the transfer to capital. So we'll talk about this a little bit more in the municipal work slides, but we've increased the transfer to capital from $4 million to $4.5 million, and this is to help offset the $1 million in salaries that are being transferred to the capital budget. Fire services, not a lot of changes this year. You learned in camera, the public education officer has been added. This has been achieved through attrition, and that was per council direction on a report earlier, or I guess in 2018. Municipal works. So beginning in 2019, we're transferring the salaries of those staff who work on capital projects to the capital fund to be funded from capital and allocated to the projects each staff are working on. This helps better reflect the cost of the capital projects, no different than you would code an external consultant to a capital project. Now we're going to put our internal consultants' time against it as well. So that results in $894,000 of salaries transferred from municipal works. And then the other large change in there is the city would like to transfer the full surplus in fleet generated from our internal rental rates charged to each department. So we charge our departments for our fleet, their repairs and amortization costs, the insurance, etc. So we create a surplus, and the idea is to put that away. You charge the amortization so that you sock it away, and you have the money there to buy the machines when they're done. So that changed the transfer from special purpose reserves from $150,000 to $863,000. Cemeteries and parks. So the cemeteries includes a request of $50,000 for a new master plan. And then again, the salary thing, there's some landscape salaries that will also be moved to capital, $221,000. So together those represent the $1.1 million that I referred to earlier. Transportation. I thought I would include their hours. There's quite a bit of changes with intermunicipal transit here. They're actually requesting their service hours to more than double. They're going up 105%. WeGo's going up almost 8%, and Niagara Falls Transit's going up 1.5% in service hours. Charavan also has experienced increased demand. So in order to accomplish or to service the increased demand, there's an additional cost of $96,000, and I believe that's for an additional route being added to the Charavan. And then in order to accomplish the level of service for intermunicipal transit that the region is requesting, the city may need to use their own buses in some instances until our new buses have been delivered. So when the city uses their own buses, we charge the region an extra $20 per hour as a capital component. The idea being, so where that's built into our revenue estimate from the region, that extra $20 an hour is being transferred to a special purpose reserve for transit fleet replacement. So that's that $183,000 that you'll see in the budget that's new. So that's just transferring the region's capital component of their hourly cost to our fleet replacement reserve. And then you guys remember this from last week, per council direction, the crossing guard hourly rates increased. So that results in an increase of $56,000.
Question?
Oh, Councilor Campbell, sir.
There was a motion made that staff was going to look at minimum wage for the crossing guards, living wage, I'm sorry, and that was coming back to us in the fall. That's still going to happen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, what we're going to do, and we'd indicated to council last week, is we'll get this new hourly rate of $17.34 in place, and HR is doing that now. And we're going to go and get a report together on the living wage issue.
Thank you.
What we would do is we'd present that back in a manner that if council did implement another increase, we would implement that for the new school year, starting in September.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilor Thompson.
Is that going to be a full report on that issue, a living wage? How many people are involved?
Well, to answer the question, I'm not sure how many people in our community are affected, but it would be a complete report. We would explain the concept to council, what the impact would be.
Because most people who are crossing guards are usually retired. It would be a supplement to their existing pensions. Most of the people I see are older people who would probably be on pension anyway.
You're looking at applying?
Actually, I did look at that when it came up. I said, $17, and that's not too bad. So anyway, all I'm looking for, all of the information with respect, because if you're talking about living wage, this is a different sector altogether.
So I think the question was more around, is it going to be a report just on the transit hires, or is it going to be a report around all of our employees at City Hall?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I think in order to explain what the concept of the living wage is, we have to have a bit more fulsome report, because there are different components to it. But the main direction ending up from that would be to, do we need to address this problem any further? But I think council, in understanding that, it needs to understand what that whole living wage debate is about.
Okay. Mr. Chen, did you have something to say as well?
Yes, just I'd like to thank council. That evening when it went to council, 4 people applied the next day, and we're back up to speed in hiring the 9 that we were missing.
That we need. That's good news. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Pass it back over to Jeff.
So just included 3 slides that I've got from Carl's staff over at Transit to highlight the ridership changes. So it's hard to read from here, but I believe it's gone up to 1.8 million, is it, in 2018 for Niagara Falls Transit. And then we've got the IMT ridership up to 670,000 and the WeGo system up to almost 1.9. So you can see the increases there. Recreation and culture, there's not a lot of changes for 2019. However, just wanted to highlight that there will be future budget impacts in 2020 with the new culture hub hopefully being built and the potential implementation of a 10-year strategic plan, which is going to come forward in 2 weeks as an ask in the 2019 capital budget submission. Planning and building, just wanted to highlight there's the Morrison Street building should be up and running soon. I think we're moving in this month or next month possibly. So budget's been asked $131,000 for expenses and $72,000 has been put in for revenue, and that's for renting the 2nd floor out. So it results in a deficit of $58,000. Debt. Everyone loves a debt slide, so I kept it in. You can see that from 2015 to 18, the city has reduced its debt balances from 57.7 million to 48.1 million, and that's a total reduction of 9.6 million. And you can see in 2019, it's projected to go down as well. In the same periods, the city obtained new debt, as council's aware, of only 1.5 million in 2016 for the LED street lighting project and 1.1 million in 2017 for the library HVAC system. I know a question that's always asked is, what's the city's debt servicing charge? And we're at 4.2% of our own source revenues at the end of 2016. So I'm hoping to have an update in a couple weeks for 2017 for you.
4.2, and the province allows 25%.
They allow 25, and I believe our council set a limit of not going over 10%. So we have a lot of room in there. And we're looking to present further information on debt levels of the other municipalities during our capital presentation next meeting. I know that was asked at an earlier council that we come back with that. So next steps, we're not looking for approval tonight, we're looking for some direction and discussion on the operating budget, and if you can provide feedback, we can go back and kind of make some changes.
Any councillor have any comments at all on the presentation, or what you would like to see staff come back with? I know in the past we've always had staff come back with some options for us that will allow us to reduce the overall tax impact that we pass on to the residents. Councillor Strange?
Yep, through your chair to Tiffany. Just wonder, I don't know if we've ever had a detailed kind of report, or if you're going to on our reserve funds.
Okay.
And what we can actually dip into. I know there's DC charges and stuff that are taken for projects and stuff like that, but other stuff, maybe a detailed report that maybe we can come back in the next couple of weeks on our next meeting, or if you had a plan already to do so, I don't know.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I wasn't planning on bringing a report on reserves, but it's something we could look at including with the capital budget meeting.
That would be amazing.
Because we'll be talking about all the different funding levels, so we can certainly provide an update on our end of 2017
Yeah,
balance.
perfect. Just give council an idea of what we got in there and what we can, I know we have a lot of projects that we want to finish up for this year.
Yes.
If we have to dip into that, then it's possible.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other councillor? Councillor Lococo?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank Ms. Clark for the hours that she spent with me going through all of these pages and all of these numbers. It was very helpful. Thank you. I know the region is increasing 5.8% and our residents don't want to see an increase in ours. It's going to be challenging to do that. We're already using some of our tax money for some of the OLG for the subsidization of our taxes. So it's hard to, what's going to happen if our OLG money goes away? What's going to happen to our taxes? Me personally and through the residents, there's a lot of people that would like to see a zero increase, knowing that we're going to take a 5.8% at the region. So my inclination would be to refer it back to staff and come back with a balanced budget. That's my personal opinion, based on comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carrier?
I've really never had anyone else other than yourself that would like to see a 0% increase. So I'd like to see a 0% or less, because if the region does come in with a 5.8, and we've used the region's come in lower than us before, which has averaged our ratepayers to the good in the past. But if they're going to come in anywhere near 6%, it would be nice to give our taxpayers a break. We hear that all the time. You know, we get $25 million from the OLG. I know we're trying to spend most of it on infrastructure, but it would be nice to see us come in with a 0% increase. So, work your magic.
Well, I think,
Or come back with
I'm
some
sure staff
suggestions.
can prepare some options for council.
Absolutely.
And then
That
council
would
can
be-
look at the
I would
options
be all in
and
favor of
decide
that as
whether or
well.
not they want to go down that road. Councillor Strange?
Yes, through you, Chair again. I know I asked for a report on the reserve. I was actually thinking about our debt as well. And if we can, would you have a chart that compares us to the other 11 municipalities as far as what their debt would be against ours? And if we could get that, that would be amazing for the next budget meeting too.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I am working on a slide that would show the debt percentage level of the other area municipalities as well as the region for our capital budget meeting. So I know that was a request before.
But it would be the ratios, right? It wouldn't be the full debt that the municipality
No,
has.
it would just be the ratio, yeah.
Yeah, it would just be the
Debt
ratio.
servicing over own source revenues.
Yeah.
Well, it just gives us a good idea how we stand against the other municipalities.
Oh, for sure.
So-
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments by members of council? If not, then perhaps a motion just to accept the presentation and then pass it back to staff so that staff can come back with some options on how we can reduce the 2.47 down to 0 or even lower. I have a motion by Councillor Lococo, seconded by Councillor Carrier. All those in favor? Thank you very much. And then the next report is F 2019-07. And yeah, do we want to just simply accept this as well? I know a lot of it has been spoken about already.
All of the finance stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's just the report that basically summarized the report. So I think it's really just
Yeah.
to
Do you need a motion?
receive the report and refer it back
Okay.
to staff.
Motion to receive and file made by Councillor Carrier, seconded by Councillor Campbell. All those in favor? Opposed? And I think we're done for finance then. I'll pass it back to the mayor.